The city skyline shimmered behind the towering windows of the executive suite. Champagne glasses clinked, reporters whispered, and every eye was fixed on the young man standing beside the woman once known as the Ice Queen of Finance. He adjusted his tie, not out of nervousness but from habit. It had only been 2 years since he'd arrived here with nothing but a second-hand briefcase and a name badge that read, Lucas, Intern. But tonight, Lucas Masters was no longer anyone's intern. He was now the youngest partner in the history of the billion-dollar firm. And beside him, the woman responsible for his rise, CEO Meredith Blackwood, smiled like someone who knew exactly what she was doing from the very beginning. But no one else knew what really happened that night. The night she waited until everyone had left and said something that would shake Lucas to the core. To understand how they got here, we need to go back to the beginning of a summer that would change everything. In this story, you'll witness a powerful female CEO no one dares to cross, a 20-something intern trying to survive in a cutthroat corporate world, a quiet mentorship that wasn't what it seemed, a shocking confession behind closed doors, and a moment that redefined what power, respect, and love could look like. Pay close attention. There's a brief quiz at the end asking, how many times was the name Lucas Masters mentioned in this video? It's just for fun. Get it right within 7 days for a chance at our shout-out post. Watching late? Answer anyway. We might still surprise you. Drop a comment, hit like, subscribe now, and turn on the bell for more unforgettable stories that blur the lines between business and the heart. The elevators at Blackwood & Chase closed with a cold metallic sigh as Lucas stepped into the 46th floor for his first day. He was early, painfully early, just like the career coach on YouTube said to be. He wore a navy suit that was slightly too big, sleeves grazing the knuckles of his trembling hands. The office was all glass and silence, minimalist, expensive. The kind of place that made interns like Lucas feel like dust in a museum. He hadn't even unpacked his bag when his new boss stormed past him, tall, commanding, hair swept into a precise bun. Meredith Blackwood, 50, fierce, Fortune's most feared CEO. She didn't look at him, she didn't need to. Lucas swallowed hard and looked at the elevator, wondering if it was too late to go back. By noon, he knew how this place worked. Silence was safety, eye contact was risk, and ambition? That was a liability unless it came with blood. But then came Tuesday. The firm was prepping for its biggest merger in a decade. Every executive was locked in high-stakes meetings. The interns were invisible, except Lucas. He stayed behind late, voluntarily reorganizing decades of chaotic acquisition files. When Meredith walked past the glass-walled archives at 9 p.m., she stopped. "Why are you still here?" she asked without emotion. Lucas turned, surprised. "I just wanted to be useful." She studied him for a beat too long. "Follow me." That night, she made him sit in while she restructured an 8-figure deal. No notes, just observe. He left the building at 1:12 a.m. It became a pattern. 3 times a week, she'd signal for him after hours. Sometimes they worked. Sometimes they sat in silence. Sometimes she asked him questions, personal ones. Why finance? What scares you? Who let you believe you weren't enough? Lucas never knew what version of her he'd get. The razor-sharp executive or the woman who played Ella Fitzgerald vinyls while sipping black coffee from a chipped mug. And just when he thought he could handle the game, she changed the rules. It was the last day of the internship. Everyone else had already left for drinks. Lucas was packing up, his offer letter unsigned, when her assistant approached. "Miss Blackwood wants to see you. Conference room D." He hesitated. That wasn't her usual space. When he walked in, it was dark, the blinds drawn, one lamp glowing. She was sitting alone, hair down, not a single document in sight. "Close the door," she said. What happened next would flip every expectation he ever had about business, power, and relationships upside down. Lucas closed the door behind him. The soft click echoed louder than it should have, like it sealed off the rest of the world. The room was unusually warm, not in temperature, but in tone. The usual icy professionalism that followed Meredith Blackwood like a shadow was gone. She didn't look up right away. Instead, she stared at the polished table in front of her, one hand wrapped loosely around a pen she clearly wasn't using. "I suppose you're wondering why I asked you to stay," she said, her voice quieter than he'd ever heard it. Lucas stayed standing, unsure if he should sit. I didn't sign the offer letter yet, he said cautiously. I know, she replied. There was a pause. She finally looked up. Her expression wasn't cold or calculating. It was tired. Not from exhaustion, but from holding up too many walls for too long. I built this company to be bulletproof. People respect it because I don't flinch. I don't bend, and I certainly don't make room for distractions. Lucas didn't speak. He wasn't sure if he was being fired, tested, or something else entirely. Meredith stood and walked slowly toward the window, arms folded across her chest. Do you know what it's like to be watched every second, to have every word you say, every deal you close, every wrinkle on your face analyzed by men waiting for you to slip? I don't, Lucas admitted, but I can imagine. She glanced back at him, a brief flash of something unreadable behind her eyes. I noticed you, Lucas. Not because you stayed late, not because you're brilliant, which, let's be clear, you are, but because you didn't come in here trying to impress me. You came in trying to earn it. Lucas's pulse quickened. You listened, you learned, and you never once tried to outshine anyone to prove a point. He finally stepped forward, cautiously taking the seat across from her. I didn't think you even saw me, he said. She smiled faintly. You weren't supposed to. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Meredith dropped the bombshell. I want you to be more than just an analyst. I want you on the executive track. Special projects, shadowing me, advising, not in 5 years, not in 3. Now. Lucas blinked. That's not how things usually work. I've never done things the usual way, she replied. I handpicked this firm from the bones of a broken merger and built it into what it is because I trust my instincts, and my instincts tell me you're not ordinary. He sat back, overwhelmed, breath caught in his throat. But, she added, voice tightening, this will come with a cost. Everyone will hate you for it. They'll say you didn't earn it, that I have favorites, that we, she paused, have something else going on. Lucas met her gaze. Then let them talk. Her eyes narrowed. You say that now, but when you're sitting in a boardroom and people are looking at you like a joke, you'll remember this moment. I'd rather be underestimated than invisible, he said, the words surprising even him. Meredith tilted her head. I said you were brilliant. From that moment on, things changed. Lucas became her right hand. Not publicly, not yet, but privately, they were a machine. He took meetings she couldn't attend. He restructured decks before she walked into investor calls. He knew how she took her coffee, how she preferred her slide transitions, and when to push an idea versus when to let it breathe. The rumors started almost immediately. He's just an intern. She's grooming him. Maybe he's related to someone. Whatever it is, he won't last. But Lucas didn't flinch. Not once. He worked harder, sharper, better, because he knew he wasn't just building his career, he was protecting the woman who gave him a chance no one else would. They made waves. Together, they restructured a failing luxury real estate portfolio into a high-growth sustainability fund. They negotiated a merger in 48 hours that other firms had botched for 2 years. They rebuilt an outreach program that brought real equity into internship access across the entire sector. And somewhere along the way, the late-night debriefs turned more personal. One night, after a brutal 12-hour day, Meredith leaned back in her chair and said, "Do you ever miss having nothing to lose?" Lucas paused. "I still feel like I have everything to prove." She looked at him for a long time. "That's why I trust you." They never crossed a line. But the tension was there. Unspoken, heavy, magnetic. The kind of thing both of them knew would be dangerous to name. Until Denver. They were presenting to a venture capital group known for cutting startups down at the knees. Meredith was flawless as always, but one of the senior partners began to grill her, not on numbers but on her age. "You've done incredible work, Meredith," the man said, "but don't you think it's time to start planning for succession? 50 is." Lucas cut in. 50 is the reason we're here today. 50 is the age at which most men are finally considered seasoned. Let's not pretend brilliance has an expiration date just because it's wearing heels. The room froze. Meredith didn't say a word until the meeting ended. In the elevator, she finally turned to him. "That was reckless." "I'd do it again," he said. "I know," she replied. "That's the problem." They didn't speak the rest of the night. But when their plane landed back in New York, something had shifted. They were no longer intern and CEO, no longer mentor and mentee. They were equals, in ambition, in pain, in respect. And then came the gala. That's where our story began. At the top of the world, champagne in hand, their partnership finally public, finally undeniable. Reporters called Lucas a wonderkind. They called her a comeback queen. But none of them knew what happened in conference room D that night. None of them knew the truth behind her offer, or the one thing she whispered to him before the doors opened to the ballroom. She had leaned in close, so no one else could hear. "I didn't just see your talent," she'd said. "I saw the way you saw me. Not as a threat or a relic, but as someone still becoming." Lucas didn't know what to say then, so he simply nodded. But now, standing beside her as cameras flashed and titles were read out, he knew what he should have said. And just as the night seemed perfect, she turned to him and whispered, "After this, we need to talk." His smile faltered just slightly. "About what?" She looked at him with an expression that was equal parts fear and resolve. "My offer wasn't the only reason I asked you to stay that night." Then the cameras went off, and the world faded to black. Lucas looked at her, stunned, not because she said it, but because of how she said it. Softly, intentionally. Like the words had been living inside her for far too long. The celebration around them was loud. Jazz swelling, laughter rising, flutes clinking. But in that moment, it was like they were in a soundproof room built from glances and silence. Lucas leaned in just enough. "Then why did you?" Meredith didn't answer right away. She straightened the neckline of her gown, pressed her lips into something halfway between a smile and a sigh, and said, "Let's get through tonight. Tomorrow, come to my place. I'll tell you then." Her place. It wasn't the invitation that shook him, it was the way she said it, unapologetically personal. For 2 years, Meredith had kept everything professional. Warm, yes, protective, sure, but always with a boundary, clear and clean, until now. Lucas nodded. Okay. The next morning, the town cars were gone. The red carpet rolled up. The news was already running with headlines like CEO and protege rewrite corporate playbook, age gap, power moves and boardroom wins, Blackwood's chosen successor revealed. Lucas didn't check the comments. He didn't need to. He already knew what they'd say. That he was sleeping his way to the top, that she was bored, that he was a trophy intern and nothing more. But when he stood outside her brownstone later that evening, bouquet of sunflowers in hand, her favorite he'd learned one night over Thai takeout, he didn't feel like a pawn. He felt like a partner. The door opened before he could knock. Meredith wore no makeup, just a loose sweater and black jeans, barefoot, and for the first time, she looked not smaller but simpler, like a storm that had finally reached the edge of land. "Come in," she said, stepping aside. Lucas entered slowly, taking in the home that reflected everything she'd tried to hide. Shelves full of jazz records, paintings of ocean waves, photos of a younger her, smiling wider than he'd ever seen at the office. He handed her the flowers. She blinked. "I haven't gotten flowers since my divorce," he smiled. "Then it's long overdue." She set them in a vase and gestured to the couch. For a while, they sat in silence, the kind that doesn't beg to be filled. A Miles Davis record played in the background. The lights were low. The room smelled faintly of cedar and lemon. Then she began. "I was 34 when I took over Blackwood and Chase," she said. "No one believed I'd last a year. They said I was too aggressive, too cold, too driven." Lucas folded his hands. "Sounds like fear talking." She laughed once, dryly. "I was scared too. I just learned to hide it better." She paused. "You reminded me what it was like to be hungry without being bitter. To want something, not for revenge, not to prove a point, but because you believe in it." She turned to him. "You reminded me of me." Lucas blinked. That meant more than any headline, any offer. She looked down at her hands. "I asked you to stay that night because I saw something in you. But I kept asking you to stay because you made me feel human. And I hadn't felt that in years." He didn't interrupt. He let her keep going. "I don't know if it was admiration or connection or—" She trailed off. "But I knew if I named it, I might ruin it." Lucas finally spoke. "You didn't ruin anything." She looked at him again, eyes glinting under the soft lamplight. "Then let's not ruin it now." They didn't kiss. They didn't even touch. But something unspoken passed between them, as real as a signature on a billion-dollar deal. And from that day on, their partnership wasn't just functional, it was alive. Over the next 8 months, Lucas and Meredith did the unthinkable. They opened a West Coast division focused entirely on impact investing. funding startups run by founders over 40, single moms, veterans, and overlooked communities. People like Meredith had once been. People like Lucas's mom, who had raised 2 kids while working double shifts as a waitress in Jersey. They launched a mentorship program pairing retired executives with young entrepreneurs. They called it the second seat, because no one succeeds without someone believing in them first. And when an East Asian tech conglomerate tried to acquire Blackwood & Chase through a quiet, hostile bid, Lucas led the resistance, orchestrating a counter-leverage strategy that made even the board's most cynical members take notice. "You're not an intern anymore," one of them said during the emergency session. Meredith just smiled. He never was. They traveled together more often, stayed in separate suites. Always professional, always just close enough to feel the line, but never cross it. But proximity breeds gravity. One night in Paris, after a summit on ethical capital, Lucas stood by her hotel window, looking out at the Seine. Meredith stepped beside him, holding 2 glasses of wine. She handed him one. "We keep doing things no one else dares to try." He nodded. "And they keep working." She sipped. "Do you think we're lucky?" "No," Lucas said. "I think we're intentional." She laughed softly. "Good answer." He turned to her. "You still worry about what people think?" "Not about the company." "Then what?" She looked at him, long and steady. "About us." He held her gaze. "There's no us." She didn't flinch. "Exactly." He set the wine down. "Maybe it's time we asked what would happen if there was." Meredith exhaled. "Lucas?" But whatever she was about to say was cut off by a knock on the door. It was her chief of operations. A crisis back home. Something about a leaked memo, a board member speaking out of turn. The moment was gone, but it lingered, in every late glance, every almost touch, every good night that lasted a beat too long. They kept working, kept winning, and soon, the media stopped questioning them and started admiring them. Forbes ran a cover, the duo that reinvented Wall Street. Time wrote, "They make power look like poetry." And when Lucas turned 30, Meredith surprised him with an off-the-books dinner at a tiny candlelit restaurant in the village. No photographers, no headlines, just them. He toasted to her. She toasted to growth. And somewhere in the middle, the waiter asked if they were celebrating an anniversary. They didn't correct him. But as the night wore on and the city outside began to blur, Meredith pulled a small envelope from her bag. "This was supposed to be for next quarter," she said. "But I think you're ready now." Inside was a partnership contract, full equity, board seat, co-strategy authority. Lucas stared at it, breath caught. "You're serious?" She nodded. "You've earned it 10 times over." He didn't open it. Instead, he looked at her. "Then why do you look sad?" Meredith smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Because if you say yes, you'll have everything, and there'll be no more excuses left to keep pretending we're just partners." Lucas leaned forward. "Maybe I don't want to pretend anymore." She reached across the table, touched his hand briefly. "I know." Then her phone lit up. A message. She read it. Her face went still. Lucas's heart skipped. "What is it?" he asked. She slid the phone across the table. It was a news alert. "Blackwood & Chase under federal review for conflict of interest in West Coast expansion." He looked up at her. "Is this?" She nodded. "Us. They're coming for us." And just like that, the partnership they'd built wasn't just a story of triumph anymore. It was under attack. In the end, it was never just about promotions or office politics. It was about 2 people who saw each other in a world that constantly overlooked them. One, a young intern who refused to stay small. The other, a CEO who had spent her life being strong for everyone else, until someone finally stood strong for her. Together, they built more than just a company. They built trust in a place where it was rare, and hope in a system that didn't make space for heart. But the higher you rise, the more the world watches. And now, they're not just fighting to keep what they've earned, they're fighting to protect who they've become. If this story moved you, comment below what moment hit you the hardest and answer the quiz at the end. Get it right within 7 days for a chance at our shoutout post. Watching late? Answer anyway, we might still surprise you. And if you love this kind of emotional story, the next one is already waiting for you. Click the video that will show on your screen soon. We'll meet you there. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you never miss what happens next. Quiz: how many times was Lucas Masters' name mentioned in this story?